Thank you for your interest in the next show, and great to have you here in Hamburg, David.
Thanks, Ina. Great to be here and great to see you again.
We're looking forward to welcoming great speakers this season, and today we have Pa Sinyan on the show.
Yes, indeed. Another great guest. This week's guest is Pa Sinyan. He's a partner at the global research firm Gallup, and he's here to talk to us about the future of work, what we learned during the pandemic and how it's set to evolve from here. I cannot wait to find out more, so stay tuned.
And we're looking forward to that, and especially because he's one of the speakers to talk about systems that help or hinder our careers. Why do we want to talk about systems? Because Hug the System is the theme for the next conference this year, and we invite several speakers to talk about systems that have an impact on our lives, basically. And you want to share a thought about that as well, I guess.
Exactly. I've been thinking a lot about systems in preparation for the next conference in September, doing a lot of research, and I hit upon a story recently that really piqued my curiosity. I want to share that with you, and I'd love to share that with you as well.
Looking forward to that.
This is a thought about transparency and brands as a system. Here's an observation that many of you will have heard me make before. A connected world is a radically transparent world, and that simple truth has profound implications for the systems that govern our lives, has profound implications for businesses. And here's what I say to clients when I'm trying to explain this shift to them. Back in the day, a business was a black box. No one could really see inside that box, and the brand for your business was whatever you painted on the outside walls. You painted your brand on the outside of the box. People would come and have a look at your brand, and either they would like it or they wouldn't. And that was just the way it was. Today, in a transparent world, a business is much more like a glass box. The walls of your business have turned to glass thanks to transparency. People can see now right inside your business. They can see your people. They can see the processes you're using. They can see your values. What they're really looking at when they look into the box is your internal culture. Your internal culture is visible as never before. And that has a massive implication for you. What it really means is that your internal culture now is a part of your public-facing brand. Because when people look at your internal culture, when they see it, they're going to start to feel things about it. They'll like it or they won't like it. It's going to become part of the set of emotional resonances that they have with your business, which is just another way of saying it's a part of your brand. And this is a hugely important counterintuitive truth for a transparent world. Your internal culture, what's happening inside your organization, is now a part of your public-facing brand. It's perhaps the most important part of your public-facing brand. So what should you do to respond to this shift? Well, there's many answers to that, but one really powerful answer is liberate your people to tell their own stories. In a transparent world, in a glass box world, every department can be the marketing department. So liberate your people inside your organization to tell their own stories, and that can become a hugely powerful part of your brand messaging. Just a couple of examples. Netflix recently launched a YouTube channel called Behind the Streams that allows Netflix people to tell their own stories, their personal history, how they ended up at Netflix and what they do there. And British Airways recently launched a podcast that empowers its frontline staff to tell their own stories, how they survived the pandemic, what that was like, how they're readjusting to the new normal now. Liberating your own people to tell their own stories is a hugely powerful play in a glass box world. It comes with risks. There's often a lot of resistance to this idea, and essentially that resistance is all built around the idea, what if my people say the wrong thing? What if they tell stories they shouldn't tell? You have to ask yourself, if you're deeply worried about your team, about your people telling the wrong stories, why is that? How can you change your culture so that they're not going to be telling the wrong stories? And the second thing to say is, look, people out there don't expect your organization to be perfect. Your world is not going to collapse if some of your people internally tell stories about your internal culture that shows that it isn't perfect, because nothing is perfect. People don't expect that. What they expect is that you're moving in the right direction. And if you can do that, and you can do it transparently, and you can empower your people to tell those stories, that becomes a hugely powerful aspect of your brand. People are saturated in traditional messaging, in traditional brand advertising. It doesn't really cut through anymore often, but these very real stories told by your own people can cut through, can be very powerful. So that is my advice for a glass box world. Liberate your own people to tell their stories.
I'm delighted to have Pa Sinyan on our show today. Pa is a managing partner at Gallup, responsible for Europe, Middle East and Africa. And he works with executives to design and implement global solutions to help them transform their organization's workplace culture and drive performance in more organic ways. Pa has experience in leadership consulting in various industries, and he has worked with the German Ministry of Economic Affairs and the African Development Bank in Tunisia. Many may know Gallup through the Strength Finder, a tool that helps individuals to explore their strengths. And judging from my own experience, it works amazingly well. So working with most Fortune 500 companies, you must have amazing sets of data. What is the size of the data you have on your hands for your everyday work? Just to give us a slight idea.
So I personally, they don't let me touch the data, to be honest. But I have colleagues who, regularly, you think of our employee database, it's, easily over 40 million at a point in time. You think about our strengths database, that's about almost 30 million. So you get a lot of data points on how many people feel. And finally, we also study global states of mind, where in 150 countries in the world, we survey a representative sample of 98% of the world's population to know what people think about life and about work. So yes, a lot of data.
Yeah, amazing. And now that this workplace situation is changing in such a radical way, probably most radical since the Industrial Revolution, what is the sentiment out there? What do you see in the data? How is the workplace and the sentiment of the people changing?
Yeah, so perhaps let's start with what's not changing, right? A lot of us spend a lot of time talking about what's changing. What hasn't changed is what people want from work. So in terms of the emotional needs that people have at their workplace, we've discovered those have remained consistent. Now, the fulfillment form, we're seeing variance take place. We are seeing, more people want to stay home and work from home. More people want to work in a hybrid setting. We are seeing people work on the go, so not just working from home, but working from the road pretty much. And this desire to maintain that, the data clearly shows that is not going away. That is here to stay. It's something that organizations are going to have to deal with. But what the data is also showing, though, is that we are seeing a loss of what I call accidental leadership. In most organizations previously, employees had the good fortune that they would bump into their managers on the way to the bathroom, and the manager would ask, "Oh, hey, how's that doing, Thomas? How's that project you were working on?" And that was actually a source of engagement. So what we're seeing in the data is that many of these managers who previously did only accidental leadership or accidental management, their teams are actually struggling in terms of cohesion, engagement, clarity on what is expected of them. But at the same time, we're seeing that those managers who were naturally and instinctively good at this, so they gave feedback, they took the time, they prioritized, holding their employees accountable, that those have actually seen their engagement levels go up. So at the aggregate level, the data actually hasn't changed. Not in Germany, not in the US. It's pretty much around where it has been pre-COVID to where it is today.
I would like to come back to that workplace and remote culture situation in a minute, but you quickly stressed on the point that the things that people want from work didn't change. What are those things that people want from work?
maybe I should clarify that, because so the not maybe what people want, but the needs, so the emotional needs that people have to perform at work, to feel well at work, those haven't changed. So, wanting to not commute anymore, that's one thing has changed. Nobody wants to commute anymore. That's just something people never want to do again. So we are seeing some change there. But when it comes to what needs should my work fulfill, what expectations do I have of my workplace for me to perform well and to feel well, those have remained consistent. Those have been, that my emotional needs like recognition, appreciation, that those are consistently fulfilled. That I feel that I have purpose, and not in the sense of a fancy, sexy purpose statement, but that I feel that I matter, what I do matters. And so that's not about the purpose statement, it's really about that personal sense of confidence that I am making a difference here. Friendships and people that we appreciate and that we trust at work. Those are the emotional needs that have consistently really differentiated teams and individuals who perform well and feel well to those individuals and teams who don't perform well and don't feel well. A foundational need there, to end on that point, is clarity of expectations. Do I know what is expected of me at work? And it's the foundation of our workplace needs. And around the world, only 50% of people go to work every day and truly know what is expected of them at work. And that hasn't taken a hit in COVID, but that is the risk of what might happen over time, that through the distance we start to lose that clarity, which is the core or foundation of good performance management.
Is there a recommendation you would have in remote working places how to make sure there is more clarity in these kind of goals that the company has, or the purpose that the single employee has?
So my CEO, Jim Clifton, wrote a book, I think 2 years ago, with the title, It's the Manager, basically referring to the Bill Clinton slogan, it's the economy stupid. So basically, it's the manager stupid. And, our analysis of our data, millions of data points over the last, decades, our biggest discovery is that 70% of the variance in the employee experience and employee engagement, in willingness to collaborate, is related to who your manager is. We're all familiar with the research that says people join companies, but they leave managers. It sounds like something we all enjoy saying, but the data confirms it is absolutely true. So as you start thinking about, recommendations or solutions, I would strongly favor all solutions that focus or emphasize the role of the individual manager. So I care less about the CEO and what the CEO does, as important as CEOs are. I care more about, in a large organization, what the 500, 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 managers are doing. It makes it more complicated because it's now multiple touch points. It's not, you can't just fix one person and everything is fine. But that's how sophisticated culture is. And if we want to have engaging workplaces in the context of hybrid work, remote work, working on the go, we need to emphasize the role of managers at all levels in any organization, because they create that clarity, they create that alignment, they fulfill those emotional needs. It cannot come from anybody else.
What is there some learnings you could share from companies where you see some kind of best practice already in these, within the last 2 years of forced remote work?
Yeah, so one best practice I can speak for within Gallup, but you mentioned it in the introduction, is just the philosophy or strategy of individualization through strengths. That has been one of the most effective strategies that we've seen out there, which is that as we are more distant, we need things that bridge us, and a common language around the understanding of different people's strengths and what they bring to the table has been very effective in terms of helping managers to individualize. So, if you and I are on a team and we have a manager, based on our strengths, how that manager sets expectations with me will be very different perhaps from how they do it with you. I lead with positivity. I don't need a lot of details, really. You might need more details. And whoever manages us, when they are aware of and have a thorough understanding of our strengths and can manage it and give us feedback and clarity based on our strengths, that's one thing that we've seen work really well in many organizations out there. Another thing that has worked very well in organizations that also goes back to the, place emphasis on the manager, put the authority and decision making in the hands not of HR, not of the CEO, but in the hands of every single manager. And we've seen some organizations try it out by creating a very sort of democratic approach to remote work, or a very individualized approach to remote and hybrid work, by saying we're not going to set a rule for how often you should be in the office, because from team to team it's different. And what a mature organization does is gives that authority to the managers for them to have those conversations and align with their team and agree, okay, you don't have to come into office for 3 months, but in those 2 weeks, we need you there because we have a particular project. There's going to be a lot of collaboration, so we can make those differences and have a more diverse solution than what many organizations are currently considering, which is let's just make one rule for everybody. And it makes sense for some people, but it makes no sense for other people. So that is something that I've seen few organizations try. In theory, it absolutely is the best approach. In practice, one barrier though is the maturity of managers. Almost half of managers don't feel comfortable talking about the mental health of their people, don't feel comfortable talking about discrimination. So putting all of this, let's call it power, in the hands of these very important managers, but who many of them really struggle to actually have meaningful conversations, are not intuitively or naturally good at it, makes that great solution a risk in the absence of sort of maturity of our leadership and of our management. But where that maturity is in place, placing all of or emphasizing the role of the manager is what I'd consider best practice.
So you think that it is important to strengthen the parts of a system to make it all work together well, if I get that right. And how would you do that to make sure every single one of those managers really gets the right approach to their employees? Are there trainings to do that?
So I think it's a combination of a stick and a carrot, right? So the carrot here obviously is, help managers to do this, because, the fact that even pre-COVID, only 50% of people knew crystal clear what was expected of them tells us that managers are not good at setting expectations. By the way, in Germany, we're exceptionally good on that dimension of leading and engaging people. We're pretty good at setting clear expectation, not so good at a culture of recognition. But in each of these cases, be it recognition, be it clarity of expectations, the reality is that many of our managers struggle to do this. And when you ask managers, many managers will tell you themselves, they don't know if they're very good at this. So I do think part of the solution has to be about, the carrot part of the solution has to be about helping them to do this better, helping them to understand how they can do it in their own style, that they don't have to replicate your behaviors or my behaviors. They can do it in line with who they naturally are. So that's really the first part, helping people to get better at this. Like I like to say, no manager wakes up and wants to give bad feedback or unclear feedback. Well, there might be a psycho somewhere, but that's really rare, to be honest. And when we've studied the topic in Germany, for example, we ask managers, do you think you're a good manager? 97% of managers think they're doing a good job. And then when we ask the employees, 70% of employees say my manager sucks. So there's a disconnect here, and it just shows that these managers need help because they don't even know how well or not well they're doing. So that's the carrot. But obviously, as with any behavioral change, you need to have incentives both positive and negative. And that's the stick part. And that starts with, what do we tolerate? What do we celebrate? What do we recognize? Who do we promote? Who do we make managers? That you have a system that is sort of nudging the organization towards the behaviors that we want. I'll give you one last example. When we ask approximately 300,000 managers around the world, why do you think you became a manager? How do you think you became a manager? It will not surprise you that the number one reason was excellence or top performance in my non-managerial role. So how we're selecting the managers is setting the managers up for failure. The second reason was, by the way, just in case you're wondering, was tenure. So I've been around long enough, eventually they had to promote me too. So those are the top reasons. And then so the system itself is not conducive to helping managers to do this right. So in addition to actually training them, equipping them, we also need to make sure we have a system that selects the right managers, holds them accountable, promotes the right managers, and make sure that this is not something that is forced on them, but something that they naturally do as part of their role as leaders and managers.
Yeah, super interesting. Thank you. I would like to touch upon a different topic because I think I saw in another talk that you were part of the World Happiness Index, that you worked on that as well. If I get that right?
I'm not a leading contributor, but yes, I am part of that exercise.
Contributed there. How would you think we should measure the happiness within a company? Is that something you could measure?
I mean, I personally would have no interest in measuring happiness, to be honest, because I don't know what to do with happiness. Because a happy employee can be happy doing nothing. So maybe it's a choice of words here. I want engaged employees. I want committed employees. I want enthusiastic employees. I want involved employees. Some of these things can translate into happy, but I think happy is in an organizational setting here, right? If an NGO targets happiness as its objectives, I love it and I would love to support that. But as I think about organizations and their means purpose for existence, and a big part of that is performance. So and happiness doesn't necessarily translate into performance. But as we think about the emotions, the positive emotions that translate into performance at work and how we measure those, at Gallup, we pride ourselves on the science of asking questions, right? The oldest market research company in the world. And, and for the last 90 years, we've been trying to understand how do you capture the quality of life and work that people experience. And, it sounds easy, but it's actually rather complicated, you discover, because some of the things that you think should matter don't matter as much. Classic example, how satisfied are you with your salary? Historically, most organizations have thought that's an indicator of how, engaged or motivated our people are. Well, when you look at the data, there's almost no relationship unless you're paying substantially below average, in which case it's frustrating. Or unless you're paying, crazy premiums, in which case it's attractive. So for us, the exercise that we undertook doing the research was really to get to what are the feelings and experiences that really translate into two things. One, high well-being, meaning people are having fun, they're motivated, they're happy. But two, that correlate with performance, meaning they're producing more value, they're more ready to support change, they're willing to transform, they're willing to contribute with their innovations and their ideas, and they're willing to go the extra mile even if nobody's watching them. And when we looked for those dimensions, the metrics that we defined were a metric we call Q12. For anybody who's interested, you can find a lot of research on it out there, which really boiled down to basic needs around clarity of expectations, feeling empowered to do my job. So do I have the equipment I need to do my job? To elements around, do I have a manager who cares about me, right? Does somebody here care about me as a person? Or one of our most controversial ones, particularly in Germany and France, do I have a best friend at work? Do I have a very good friend at work? Somebody that I truly care about and consider more than just a colleague? And as we were doing this research, we discovered that certain questions or certain statements consistently sorted for performance and for motivation. And hence, those are the items that we at Gallup use to really measure the state of the employee experience at work. How are they experiencing work? And it's almost all emotional.
Interesting. Why is that controversial in Germany and France?
I should perhaps say that I am one of the Germans. I'm one of you people. Before I go German bashing, I should probably claim my Germanness. Culturally, historically, these appear to be cultures that have more strongly differentiated between work and play. This is not academic research, what I'm saying here, but part of the strengths in societies like Germany have come from that strong distinction between work and play, that level of focus. And when we're here to do one thing, we're going to focus completely on it. But part of the challenges we experience today are also because we maintain that focus, but we don't explore relationship building, trust building. which is why I feel part of why we've struggled to be innovative. We've struggled to, be part of the winning teams when it comes to paradigm shifts, new industries, new economies, new modes of working. We often are laggards rather than really being out front. But it does seem culturally we react allergic to the concept of friendships at work, because we strongly place friendships in our private life, in our personal life, in the good part of work, of life. And that is not work, sadly, for most of us, because the private life is where the good stuff happens, and work is work. And friendships are part of the good life. And so that's why we struggle philosophically with the idea. But I should tell you, for 40% of German workers, they absolutely have a best friend at work. So even though we intellectually and conceptually struggle with the idea, it strongly matches with the reality of what many people experience at work. So it is not, it's not uncommon. We just struggle with the idea philosophically.
Yeah, interesting. So I can consider myself lucky to have friends at work there. Thank you so much for that fascinating insights. That was really a great conversation, but it's not over yet. I would love to dive into the 5 questions that we gave to you. So imagine this. It's the near future. Amid an acute crisis on planet Earth, a crack team of technologists starts a new chapter for humanity. Together with 1,000 pioneers, they will travel to planet next one to establish a new base, a new home for humans. Thanks to your outstanding achievements in the field of innovation and research, you have been chosen to be among the first pioneers. But before you may board the space shuttle, you have to answer 5 questions. So this is question number 1. Could you name one luxury object you want to take to your new home?
So a luxury object, which might be an unrealistic object, but since we're dreaming, would be some form of technology that grants me access to media, know-how, awareness about what is going on planet Earth. Because I would want to stay connected and understand what is going on planet Earth. Because hopefully we're not leaving because Earth is gone. So I would want to maintain connection to planet Earth.
And what book should anyone read before boarding the space shuttle, basically?
A book that I think everybody should read before doing anything, to be honest. It's one of my favorite Gallup books. Even though it's less about the book, more about the idea, it's Now Discover Your Strengths. It's a book that not just comes with theories, but also a tool to help everybody actually discover what their natural strengths are. Because I would want us to be, in this new environment and this new society, I would want to have people who know who they are and who they are not. Because when we know who we are, it makes it easier to appreciate others and to have tolerance and awareness for that being different is not bad, and that it can be a strength. So that's what I would want everybody to be aware of, their own unique strengths.
Great idea. What exceptional person would you like to take to the new planet?
So this might be a little bit controversial in this day and age, but obviously I'd like the smartest man in the world by our side, so Elon Musk is coming.
He might be there already. I can't remember because we do this interview every now and then. But yeah, it would help probably to get further space shuttles as well. Could you create one law that bans something from next one forever?
My friends will call me old school and just say, see, you're just such an old school person, but I would ban social media. I think as good as it is, it might do more harm than good, and maybe we don't need it. We can stick to good old intimate relationships.
I know what you mean. And finally, what tradition would you like to take from planet Earth?
The different modes or methods of community building, which on Earth has been from religion to, in Germany, Vereine, so these sort of clubs where everybody at some point in your lives, you're part of some community, be it you're volunteering for something. We know from research that feeling that you're part of a community is so critical for our engagement, for our well-being, for our sense of belonging, for our ability to generate hope that drives us forward. So not sure what channel it would be. Maybe we might create a next one religion. But something that creates that sense of community and sense of belonging. And it could be different ones, but that is a tradition that we have that has really taken us far, and is a source of many of our best innovations and positive emotions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for this conversation. You may now board the space shuttle, and I hope to see you there. Thank you.
I hope to see you there too. Thank you for this conversation. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for being our guest today, and thank you for watching. I also would like to thank our partners Accenture Song and Factor 3 for their support. If you would like to join us live, simply apply for a ticket for the next conference in September in Hamburg on our website. Hope to see you there. Bye-bye.